And we are ready to start the Licensure Committee meeting for the California Board of Psychology.
This is the moderator. I'll start the recording.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, good morning. I'm happy to welcome you all to today's Licensure Committee meeting. And before we move to public comment for items not on the agenda, I would like to share a few logistical items, beginning with the roll call. Ms. Proto, could you please call the roll?
Good morning. Harb Sheets.
Here.
Nystrom.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Roll is complete.
Thank you. Okay, before we move to public comment for items not on the agenda, I'd like to ask everybody to turn your cell phones and other devices to silent, and also please mute your phone unless you're speaking. If you're attending today's meeting and would like continuing professional development credit, Ms. McCochran will let us know how that can be arranged. So let me please turn it over to Ms. McCochran to give us those instructions.
Thank you, Dr. Herb Sheets. So attending today's committee meeting provides you with CPD credit. For your CPD records, please notate today's date as July 21st, 2023, and note that we are here for the Licensure Committee meeting. At the end of the meeting, I will announce how many hours you can be credited. If you called into this meeting, please email bopce@dca.ca.gov. Again, I'll repeat it, bopce@dca.ca.gov with your license number and the phone number used to call in. If you signed in using the computer or mobile device, your attendance is automatically documented and no further information is necessary. Back to you, Dr. Harb Sheets.
Thank you. Okay, as indicated, we have allocated time for public comment for items not on the agenda at the beginning of our meeting. And additionally, we welcome public comment on any item on the agenda. And it's the committee's intent to ask for public comments prior to taking action on any agenda item. We believe public comments are instrumental to our meetings and add to the vibrant discussion on matters before the committee. If you're making a public comment, please do not identify any licensee or registrant of the board by name in order to avoid prejudicing any future action that may be required of board members in our capacity as a deliberative body in enforcement proceedings. Please also be respectful of our time constraints and the need to conduct and complete the committee's business. If there are several members of the public seeking to comment on an item not on the agenda or on a particular agenda item, I will set a time limit on each speaker to ensure maximum participation by all in the context of a busy agenda. So now I would like to ask for public comment for any items that are not on today's agenda.
And this is the moderator. Instructions on how to request to make a comment are displayed on the screen. If you are in person, you can raise your hand and catch the eye of the board member in attendance. If you are logged in via WebEx, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. Or if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. At this point, we do have a request for comment from someone logged into WebEx as Bruce Meyer. Bruce, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. And Bruce Meyer, you should have gotten a pop-up saying unmute me. There you go. You're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. I'm still working on joining the meeting, so no, I'm sorry, I don't have any comments.
Okay, you have joined the meeting and everything should be running that you can hear it appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I do not see any other, one moment. And yes, we do not have any other requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, again, I would like to welcome you to today's meeting of the Board of Psychology Licensure Committee. And as I've described, you will have an opportunity to comment on each agenda item we will be discussing during the open session of our meeting, and we will take public comment prior to acting on any agenda item. We'll now meet in open session as noted on the agenda, and later we'll move into closed session to discuss and consider applications for licensure. We will not be discussing any items in open session after the closed session of business concludes, except to adjourn the meeting. Okay. Next item is item number 4 on the agenda, to review and possibly approve the Licensure Committee meeting minutes of January 13th, 2023. Do we have any committee comments, or if anyone would like to make a motion or suggest changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay. Any public comment?
And this is the moderator, and we have opened up the public comment feature. If you are in person, you may look for the board member and catch their attention. And I regret not doing this last time, but to formally acknowledge, are there any requests for public comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento.
Thank you so much. And are there any requests for comment at Dr. Harb Sheets' location?
No, there are not.
Thank you. And are there any public comment requests at Dr. Tate's location?
There are not.
Thank you. Are there any requests to comment from anyone logged into WebEx? The instructions are on the screen. You may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. Or a call-in user may press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Pruteau, would you please call the roll for the vote?
Harb Sheets,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Tate.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 5, the staff reports, and start with the licensing report.
Good morning, committee members, board, council, and attendees. My name is Mai Zong. I'm the licensing and briefs coordinator. I'll be going over the licensing report. And attachment A is the licensee population report, which provides a snapshot of the number of psychologists and registered psychological associates and age status as of June 22nd, 2023. Comparing the data to the report made at the May board meeting of this year, we have 61 more licensed psychologists who are in current status and 68 less who are in the inactive status. For registered psychological associates, we have 42 more current psychological associates than the data provided at the May board meeting. And attachment B, you will find the application workload report for both psychologists and registered psychological associates. We observed that there is an increase of psychological associate initial application in May in comparison to the previous month. And attachment C, it provides the number of new application and notification received in the last 12-month period. In comparison to the same 12-month period in 2021 and 2022, there is an increase of 114 psychologist application and 216 psychological associate notification, and a decrease of 153 psychological associate applications. And then moving to attachment D, it provides a 6-month overview of average application processing timeframes and business days. For psychologists processing timeframe, the average processing timeframe show an increase in May. However, that timeframe jumped back down in June. For psychological associate processing timeframe, there is a slight increase in June in comparison to the previous month. As previous mentioned on the workload report in attachment B, the initial application for psychological associate had increased in May, so that may have contributed to the increase of processing timeframe for June. And with that, that will conclude the licensing reports. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have any questions? I don't hear.
I do not. Thank you for the report.
Yes. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Moderator, would you please open the box for public comment?
Certainly. And to make a public comment, if you are in person, you can raise your hand and catch the attention of the board member in attendance. If you are on WebEx, you can look for the raised hand icon, the little icon of the hand. Click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. So to check in again with our locations in person, are there any requests for comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento.
Thank you. Any comments in San Diego?
No, none here.
Thank you. Any comments in Redding?
No, there are not.
Thank you very much. And I do not see any requests for comment in the virtual attendees either. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 5B, which is our continuing education / professional development and renewals report from Ms. McCochran.
Hi, good morning. So for renewals between January 2023 through June 2023, 84% of psychologists renewed as active. And of the 16% who did not renew as active, 2% renewed as retired. Approximately 90% of psychologists and psychological associates use Breeze to renew. And we resumed CE audits. We are auditing licensees whose license expired in June 2023. During our last licensure committee meeting, we discussed developing a form to document CPD hours, and the CPD reporting form is now accessible on the board's website. Since CPD has went into effect January 1st, we have gotten over 1,000 emails regarding CPD, and we make sure to respond within 48 hours. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from our committee members?
No questions here.
Okay. Madam Moderator, could you please open the box for public comment?
Certainly. And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. Instructions are also on the screen. If you are attending in person, you can catch the eye of the board member in attendance. If you are on WebEx, you can look for the raised hand icon. Click that to raise your hand. And if you are, you may also use the question mark icon. Click that, type the word comment, and click send. And any call-in user may press *3 to raise their hand. We have 2 requests for comment virtually. Do we have any in-person in Sacramento requests?
None in Sacramento.
Thank you. Any requests in San Diego?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any requests in Redding?
None in Reading.
Thank you very much. So the first online attendee who has requested to comment is Dr. Barbara Lipinski. Barbara, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. And Dr. Barbara Lipinski has lowered her hand, so apparently that was a mistake. Moving on to someone logged into WebEx as Anson Levine. Anson, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you may make your comment. You're unmuted.
Hello?
Anson, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm new to this process, and so I'm just trying to find my way here. I'm first surprised. I thought this was going to be an on-screen demonstration, and it's not. But my question with respect to psychologists is, in numbers, how many licensed psychologists are in the state of California?
All right.
Would you like to refer Dr. Levine back to the appropriate attachment that will list that information?
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, in attachment A of the licensing report, we have 20,235 licensed psychologists in current status and 2,376 in inactive status.
Okay, that's quite a few. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I do not see any other requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item 5C, the examination report from Ms. Snyder.
Hello, good morning. So for exams, we have the EPPP, which is the national exam developed by the Association for Provincial and Psychology Board, and it's administered by Pearson VUE. So I have statistics here for from January to June. We had an overall number of candidates of 919. The number of candidates that passed was 396. And the percentage is about 43.09%. For first timers, we had 454. And then out of that 454, 294 passed. And that's an overall pass rate of 64.76 or 65%. I also included a chart that depicts the pass rate statistics for the EPPP from 2020 through 2023. So at the beginning of 2022, there was a downward trend of pass rates compared to the past years. Candidates did slightly better in August and November of 2022 compared to August and November of 2021. For 2023, there was an increase in pass rate in February and March. So there is not one factor that can be pinpointed as to why the failure rate is low. There are some possible factors, but at this point, it's merely speculation. The pandemic may have been a factor. The board did experience a high number of cancellations and rescheduling due to exam site shutdowns during the pandemic that may have contributed to the high failure rate. There are some candidates that do not do well on exams, and as a result must retake the exam, and repeat test takers tend to fail at a higher rate than first timers. Candidates who graduate and wait 5 to 10 years later to take the EPPP may have difficulty passing the exam the first time around. Candidates may be focusing on passing the exam rather than taking and applying their knowledge on the exam. They may be focusing on certain areas of the exam rather than trying to pass the exam as a whole. ASBPB also suggested that candidates coming from American Psychological Association accredited programs tend to do better than those coming from non-APA accredited schools. The board itself does not require APA accreditation, but we do require schools to hold regional accreditation. Schools can also be a factor. However, the board has no authority to regulate schools and their curricula, and each school may develop a different curriculum program as they see fit. ASPPB recently released its doctoral program report. You should have a link and a hand carry item on that. It's divided into two sections. The first section has 3 years that reviews pass rates for the 3 years prior to COVID and 3 years during COVID. So based on those numbers, prior to COVID, accredited programs had a higher pass rate, 80%, compared to non-accredited programs, which was at 55%. During COVID, accredited programs had a 76% pass rate, and non-accredited programs were at 46%. So just to clarify, regional accreditation is for the institution where the doctoral program is housed. Accredited programs which are housed in regional accredited institutions are specific programs that lead to the doctoral degree. However, not all regional accredited institutions have APA accreditation. Based on these numbers, it would appear accredited programs overall were did better even during COVID than non-accredited programs. Programs in universities had a higher pass rate than programs in professional schools, and PhD programs had higher pass rates than PsyD programs. The Office of Professional Examination Services will be conducting a California school analysis. The data, unfortunately, is still in the tallying phase. The analysis will look at both the EPPP and the CPLEE. And then also the board staff also compiled data from different states and their educational and licensure requirements, as well as each state's pass rate for the past 4 years. That's also included in your packet. For the CPLEE, California Laws and Ethics Examination, the overall pass rate from January to June of 2023 is at 84%. And then for first timers, you have 84.62% or 85%. So, and then you also should have the chart for a CPLEE statistics from 2020 through 2023, and CPLE pass rates seem to be consistent over the past years with no noticeable deviation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snyder. Committee members, any comments or questions? I hear none. Madam Moderator, could you please open the box for public comment?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you have a comment on the report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. And of course, if you are attending in person, you may catch the eye of the board member in attendance. And as a formality, we will go through and check in. In Sacramento, were there any requests for comment?
None in Sacramento, thank you.
Thank you. In San Diego, any requests?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. In Reading, any requests?
There are none in Reading.
Thank you very much. And I do not see any requests through WebEx. So shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item 6. In our licensing sections, continuing work towards reducing application processing timeframes, we will hear from Ms. Chung on establishing a target licensing application processing timeframes. Ms. Chung, could you please begin your report?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harpsheet. Good morning, committee members. For this item, we just want to provide some background. So this is the goal of board staff to always streamline the processing of our initial applications for registration and licensure. At the last board meeting in May, Vice President Shakanda Rogers actually asked us what an ideal processing timeline would be. Though there's not a required timeline set forth in statutory regulations, board staff always strives to complete the initial review of an application for registration or licensure within about 4 weeks, like 30 days from the date received. So if you may be wondering what we mean by initial review, it actually means that the review for a new application being received by us, and then at the initial review, when it's complete, an application can either be approved when all necessary requirements are met, or we are notifying the applicants if they haven't met the requirements or have not provided the necessary information for us to give them the approval just yet. So that is what the initial review will comprise of. So board staff believe that establishing a target processing timeline for the initial application review would actually be very beneficial because it would, one, enhance transparency and our customer service to our stakeholders and applicants, and also serve as a target in our ongoing efforts in streamlining this process. So considering the comments and feedback received by our stakeholders in the past years and any recommendations that we receive, board staff is actually recommending a 2-week turnaround time to complete this initial review of application. Board staff also would like to recommend to include the new target processing timeframes in the board's upcoming strategic plan. So we asked the committee to discuss and decide if we should be having a target processing timeframe of 2 weeks. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. So this discussion will be about what we would like to recommend to the full board at the August meeting. And when Ms. Chung, when you talk about a 2-week turnaround, are you thinking of a particular time frame when we might be able to achieve that?
It would be a longer term goal because based on current staffing level, we won't be able to do this just yet, but we are anticipating that we could be achieving that in about a few years, given the goal as a part of the strategic plan.
Okay. Committee members, your comments or questions?
This is Ms. Nystrom. I think I'm supportive of adding the 2 weeks to the strategic plan. I would hate to put staff in a position where we say 2 weeks if it's not attainable. And I think 4 weeks is 30 days is, allows for a quick return. And then obviously if they can get it done sooner, I think that would be, great. But I would hate to put our staff in a situation where they're not meeting timelines. That would be my only concern.
Yes. And again, we're talking about from the time an application is received to the time and that initial application is reviewed and feedback to the applicant, Ms. Chung, is that correct? Or is it 2 weeks from the time it's received and begun to be reviewed?
So it would be 2 weeks, that would be from the received day, and then we should be able to provide them with a determination whether approval is provided or more information is necessary for the approval within that 2-week time frame.
Okay, got it. Dr. Tate, do you have any comments?
My initial thought follows with Ms. Nystrom, but it sounds like Ms. Chung feels confident that getting that information within 2 weeks is reasonable.
And again, and Ms. Nystrom, you were saying to put it in the strategic plan, but not necessarily to suggest that it would happen anytime soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, just that way there's a goal to work towards streamlining the process to reach the 2-week goal, but to allow staff the necessary time to potentially get another position or two, or come up with a streamlined process. So if we added it to the strategic plan, then that just allows staff a little bit of time without, and the goal of streamlining the process.
Yeah. And the strategic plan is going to be worked on this year. And Ms. Chung, when that strategic plan will cover what period to what period?
So go ahead,
This
please.
is Antoinette. Sorry. The strategic plan is for 5 years. It's a 5-year strategic plan. So let's say, for example, the board puts in as a goal the 2-week target in the strategic plan. Then the follow-up would be that staff, as part of meeting goals, would establish objectives. And let's say an objective example would be to get a budget change proposal to seek the necessary positions to meet the goal. And then we would put a time frame on that. And that way it's solidified somewhere in writing that this is the goal that the board has established. This is the objective, doing the budget change proposal to get the position to meet the goal. And then we put the time frame. So that's kind of the order of things to
Thank you.
put it in context. Sure.
Yeah, thank you for that context. Okay, committee members, do we have, we're being asked to recommend to the full board a target processing time frame for the initial review of registration licensing applications. Would either of you like to make a motion?
This is Ms. Nystrom. I am happy to make the motion to set a strategic or a timeline for the strategic plan.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, so let's have it, so specifically that we're recommending the 2-week timeline as a target processing timeline to be included in the strategic plan for the initial review of registration and licensure applications. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Dr. Tate, you seconded?
Yes, I did.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And let's please open the box for public comment.
And we have opened up the public comment feature in WebEx. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you can look for the raise hand icon and click that. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And if you are in person, you can raise your hand and catch the eye of the board member in attendance. And we'll check through with our in-person locations. Are there any requests for comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento, thank you.
Thank you. Any requests for comment in San Diego?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any requests for comment in Reading?
No comments in Reading.
Perfect, thank you. And I do not see any requests for comment from any online members either. So shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Pruteau, would you please call the roll for the vote?
Sheets?
Aye.
Nystrom?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. We will move on to agenda item number 7, which is discussion and possible action on the Certificate of Professional Qualification, CPQ, outreach survey questions by the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards, ASPPB. Ms. Sork, would you like to give us some background on that?
I will actually defer to Ms. Chung for this item.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Sorry.
Ms. Chung.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, for this item, let me provide some background on this. So back in March 22nd this year, we received some questions posted by the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards, ASPBB, about their Certificate of Professional Qualification in Psychology program, which is also known as the CPQ. So in their explanation about is that they're doing research about their program, provided a brief description, which I will kind of briefly go over that here. So the CPQ program is based on standards established by the ASPBB Mobility Committee and endorsed by their board of directors. The CPQ is a means by which a doctoral level licensed psychologist can easily demonstrate to a psychology licensing board that he or she has met ASPBB recommended standards for licensure, which include specific requirements relative to his or her educational background, supervised experience, performance on the EAAP, and has never had disciplinary actions taken against his or her license. The CPQ does not constitute a license to practice. So the questions that we are asking the committee to consider from the CPQ survey is provided on the memo, which I will be reading it for the record. The first question is, how would your jurisdiction feel about ASPBB requiring applicants to only come from APA or CPA or ASPBB or National Register designated doctoral programs in psychology to be eligible for the CPQ? That's the first question. And then the second question is, in addition to an official CPQ verification from ASPBB, does the California Board of Psychology require any additional documentation? For example, supervised experience documentation or EAAP score verification, etc. So these are the two questions that we are asking the committee to discuss and recommended response to the board meeting in August. Thank you.
Okay, so committee members, let's look at question number 1. And what are your thoughts about this potential change that ASPPB is suggesting we consider? I guess I'll start. Since in California, we only require applicants to have graduated from regionally accredited programs, the way I see it is if we answered that it would be okay with us if they made this change, we would basically be eliminating some of our California doctoral students to obtain a CPQ if those students came from a regionally accredited and not APA accredited program. Do you see it that way, Ms. Nystrom?
Dr. Harpsheets?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm having problems working the phone instead of the computer, so I'm unmuting myself and muting myself. I see it that way. I think it would carve out a lot of people that would not be eligible. And we do have a lot of programs, as you described, in California that would not meet this criteria.
Yes, that would be very limiting. How about you, Ms. Nystrom?
I'm curious, being a public member, how useful the CPQ is to California, how much it's used. Just in general, as just general background information.
So how many people, I guess, Ms. Chung, do you get where people are submitting CPQ from in California people as they're applying for licensure?
Correct.
We usually get those CPQ certificates from out-of-state licensed psychologists who wants to get a license in California. So it will be part of the out-of-state applicants. I don't have the exact stats right now in front of me, but it's not like too big of a number from out-of-state individual, as far as I remember.
So it would limit the mobility of our California people potentially going to other states, correct?
It would be if the other states also considering CPQ as kind of like a faster track for licensure path for them in that state. Because in our state, in California, a holder of a CPQ is deemed to have met the experience and education requirements. So it provides them a little faster track, so then they don't have to gather the experience documents to us before they can apply to take the law and ethics exam.
Do you think that if someone in California who was able to get a CPQ designation, at the way things stand now, went with it to another state, it's the other state's decision whether or not they're going to accept it. If let's say that person came from a regionally accredited program, that wouldn't have anything to do with this question for us. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Those are two different distinctive requirements.
Okay. Any other thoughts from committee members?
This is Ms. Nystrom. My only other comment is I shared the same concerns as Dr. Tate. Thank you.
I would like us to open the box for public comment on this question number 1 at this time.
Certainly, this is the moderator, and we have opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. In order to make a comment, if you're in person, you would raise your hand and catch the attention of the board member in attendance. And if you're on WebEx, you can either raise your hand by clicking the hand icon, or you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. So our first request for comment is from someone logged into WebEx as Dr. Carol Breeling. Carol, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
I just want to say the board should not be creating barriers for someone like me to succeed and move forward and up and in my career by limiting us from being APA accredited, non-APA accredited. That just, you don't even look at me, you don't look at my licensing, you don't look at my test exams. I'm immediately disqualified. I'm a disabled veteran, and through most of my doctoral program, I was traveling overseas, and I could not take an APA accredited because none of the schools are APA accredited or online. But I fervently wanted to complete my doctoral degree. I found after graduating that I have difficulty getting jobs at Kaiser, the VA, many positions because my school is not APA accredited. Yet so many people say, Carol, you are so good at what you do. I am disqualified. The boards continually try to push this APA. If I'm not from an APA school and I take the exam and I fail, or I'm not the highest pass rate, that's on me. Don't disqualify someone like me from taking an exam or achieving status or jobs due to the fact that my school was not APA accredited. Please change your focus to the individual and the accomplishments rather than the school I came from. That's all. I'm a military veteran and I can't even serve my population, and I know it intimately, having done so many years and being retired military. I can't even serve my population. That's a shame that the board created a barrier for me. Thank you.
This is Dr. Harp-Sheets. I just wanted to clarify when we were talking about ASPPB, that particular board, that's a national board as compared to our Board of Psychology, who we are, and that as California, we are one of the few states in the United States who do allow people from non-APA accredited programs to become licensed in California. So I hope that helps Dr. Breeling to give a perspective on our board's support of regionally accredited programs.
But the issue keeps coming up in all these things where we're talking about a new requirements for this the CPQ.
CPQ.
Every time we talk about new requirements, we make it more difficult to filter out APA accredited schools. Why do we support the fact that Kaiser, the VA, make these decisions that it has to be from an APA accredited college or university? It just singles out a lot of us, and it's very sad. That's all I'm saying. Stop doing that. If I fail, I fail. But if I pass, allow me to work in the fields I want to work in. I wish there was more support for, even though non-APA accredited universities are shunned, I feel like it's my experience.
Right.
Thank
We
you.
hear you. Yeah, that's why we've been very supportive of regionally accredited schools. So we definitely hear you. Okay.
And thank you. This is the moderator. And our next request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx. WebEx is Judith Greco-Gregory. Judith, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
The discussion of the CPQ designation, I just wanted to clarify if I heard it correctly. It was talking about a possibility of an EPPP score. Is that correct? And if that is correct, what would the score be?
Oh, no, actually CPQ is a designation that has to do with the internships, courses that have been taken, and has nothing to do with the EPPP score. It
Okay.
actually is obtained prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
And our next request for an online comment comes from Joe, someone logged into WebEx as Joe Linder Crow. Joe, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and there you go, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, Dr. Joe Linder Crow. I'm the CEO at the California Psychological Association. I just wanted to support and follow up on what Dr. Harp-Sheets is saying, and also to clarify further for Dr. Breeling that this is an effort, and seems to be an ongoing effort of the ASPPB, which is the Association for Licensing Boards, to make APA accreditation a requirement for almost anything that ASPPB manages in terms of credentials. This is the same dynamic that we see with SIPACT, which is one of the reasons that California is not a member of SIPACT at this time, I believe. So I do think that this is a real opportunity for the California Board of Psychology to step forward and strongly comment to ASPPB that while this seems to be the direction that they are going in to require APA accredited programs for almost anything that they offer, there are other considerations. And I think Dr. Breeling has very articulately made that case. And this is the same issue and the problem that we face when we consider SIPACT. So I would appreciate the board's comments and really urge the board to stand firm and to make a strong comment to ASPPB. As the California Psychological, as the California Board of Psychology, that carries a lot of weight. So thank you all for this conversation.
Thank you.
And our next request for comment is a raised hand from Judith Greco-Gregory. And Judith, I'm not sure if that's a leftover raised hand or a new comment, but I sent you a request to unmute.
Sorry, it's leftover.
All right, thank you so much. And then I realize we have not checked in with our in-person locations. Are there any requests for comment in Sacramento? No one in the hearing room there?
No, none here.
Thank you. Any requests for comment in San Diego?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any requests for comment in Reading?
None in Reading. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that concludes our public comment requests. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please.
Thank you.
Committee members, shall we, in terms of question number 1, since that's really the policy question, shall we make a motion regarding what we would like to suggest to the full board at the August meeting regarding how we would respond to this question to ASPPB?
I think that's a good place to start.
Okay.
Do you want a motion initially, or what are you looking for verbiage?
A motion with verbiage. What would we recommend to our board as to how they should consider we respond to ASPPB regarding this question?
I'm open to Ms. Nystrom, the comments as well. So let me see if I can do this on the fly. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the board in a letter to ASCPD stating our concerns regarding not including certain institutions in the CPQ as it's laid out currently.
And the limitations that would result in terms of people entering the profession?
Yes, yeah. Can you add that in there?
Yeah. I can second that. It's Dr. Harbsheets.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we should open the box for public comment again, since there's now a motion on the floor. Let's just see if anyone has some additional public comment.
Thank you. And we do have one request for public comment virtually, but if anyone else has a comment virtually, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. Our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand, and our in-person attendees can raise their hand and catch the attention of the board member in attendance. Our first virtual comment is from Dr. Carol Breeling. Carol, I'm going to send you a request to unmute.
Thank you. Question should be simple. There's do no harm. So ask yourself, are we creating a barrier for an individual to achieve professional success or not? That's all. Are we creating a barrier to promotion? Are we creating a barrier to opening up the job fields? The Board of Psychology is setting the tone for industry to follow. I almost want to say shame on you for eliminating so many of us because of an accreditation of our school. What is the reason we had to? A handicapped person like myself, we can't get to all these different schools. We have barriers. Don't make it so much more difficult for me to achieve success in this field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Breeling.
And our next request for comment is from Dr. Gary A. Longwoods. Gary, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. And you're unmuted. Go ahead, Dr. Longwoods.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Hey, I'm in Bakersfield, California, and I've always struggled with the ASPBB issue. I thought about becoming part of that, and then I'd always changed my mind. The issue is, it was the California Board of Psychology that licensed me. It was they who decided whether or not I met the minimum requirements and was able to practice. And I don't understand why ASPB believes that maybe they're better than the Board of Psychology, that they might know better than you who is acceptable and who is not. And it's for those reasons I've always kind of backed away from it and tried to avoid it. But it seems to be becoming more and more of an issue as time goes on, particularly with reciprocity. I wonder if maybe you can comment on that.
Well, let me ask Ms. Sorek if you would like to comment from a perspective on the question of ASPPB's relationship with the California board, or how that the connection is, since they, well, I'll leave it there. Ms. Sorek, would you please just kind of clarify the relationship there?
Sure. I'll try this out. California is a member of the Association of Psychology Boards, as we are. Also has provinces in Canada, and they work with their member jurisdictions on policy. Typically, when there are changes to policy, they solicit input from their member jurisdictions, which they have done here, to get feedback. It's my understanding that California and New York are unique in that we allow regional accreditation. But there are several other states that require APA accreditation for programs. So just to add that little bit of context, and I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you for that. It just almost feels as if the licensing issue is trying to be moved to a national level rather than a state level with their with the SPBB. It just feels that way to me.
Yeah, I think when we remember what the mission of the California board is, which is to protect the California consumers, and that's our primary mission. ASPPB is looking at licensing overall, and they don't have that same primary mission, or at least I don't see it as stated in the same way. And so I think we have to keep ourselves separate in that way, but they do solicit comments from us, and they do tend to be open to those comments. I know with SIPAC, when we were concerned about their limitation for SIPAC providers, as Dr. Linda Crow suggested, to be only have graduated from APA accredited programs, they did make some modification in that way. But yeah, so at least they are asking us, and they do seem to take our responses seriously. And at that point, at this point, that's the best we can hope for.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I do not see any further requests for comment on WebEx. Are there any requests for comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento, thank you.
Thank you. Any requests in San Jose?
San Diego, you mean?
San Diego, my apologies.
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any requests in Reading?
None in Reading, thank you.
You're welcome. So yes, that concludes the public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Please do.
Thank you.
Okay, committee members, before we vote on the motion before us. Do you have any other comments?
None here.
Ms. Proto, will you then call the roll?
Barb Sheets,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Tate.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to question number 2. This is still agenda item 7. The question is, in addition to an official CPQ verification from ASPPB, does the California Board of Psychology require any additional documentation? For example, supervised professional experience documentation, EPPP score verification, etc. Ms. Chung, could you give us a comment on that and let us know anything else that we do actually require beyond the official CPQ verification?
Certainly. So right now, we do require an official transcript from the applicant because we have to primary source their education qualification. And we also ask them for their current license information so that we can confirm that they're indeed currently licensed in another state in good standing. And these are two extra documentations that we required other than the application and fee.
Okay. So it sounds like is there anything, well, let me think about that. It sounds like what we can do in response to this is to have a motion that says we ask the board or let the board know what we are requiring, and that ask the board to consider that this is how question number 2 would be answered in our response to ASPPB. Committee members, do you agree with that as a motion?
This is Ms. Nystrom, and I do.
Yes, I do as well.
Okay, so either of you like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, could we please open the public comment box?
Certainly, and we have opened up public comment for the discussion about the motion. If anyone online would like to make a comment, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. Our calling users can press *3 to raise their hand. And if you are attending in person, you can raise your hand and get the attention of the board member in attendance. Maybe this time we will go in order of in-person attendees. Are there any requests for comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento.
Thank you. Anyone in San Diego?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any requests in Redding?
No requests in Redding.
Thank you. And I do not see any requests for comment from anyone online. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Please, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Proto, will you call the roll, please?
Barb Sheets,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Tate.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 8 on the agenda, which is recommendations for agenda items for future licensure committee meetings. Committee members, do you have any recommendations you would like us to discuss at future licensure committee meetings?
This is Dr. Tate, and I do not have any suggestions.
This is Ms. Nystrom, none here either.
Okay, and I do not have any. Additionally, please, Madam Moderator, could you open the public comment box?
Certainly. And if anyone has any suggestions of topics for future meetings, you may look for the raise hand icon of the hand in the bottom of the WebEx screen. Click that. You can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise your hand. And if you are attending in person, you may raise your hand and catch the attention of the board member in attendance. So let's go ahead and I guess go in with the in-person comments. Are there any in-person comments in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento, thank you.
Thank you. Any in-person comments in San Diego?
None in San Diego.
Thank you. Any in-person comments in Reading?
No comments in Reading. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one request for comment online. So from Dr. Carol Breeling. Carol, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Just want to ask that you please keep investigating this APA requirement across the board. You are limiting who can attend. And as a military veteran, I don't believe I should be ousted because I was overseas and could only take an online school. Please judge me on how well I do on the exam, how well I do in internships, not an APA internship, whatever. Please keep that on the board. It's too discriminating. And there's so much when change happens in the country, usually it's done through legal action. None of us want to see our boards up in the legal on TV on Channel 3 News. None of us want to see that. Please make change at the level you're at so no other further legal actions have to be smearing our names all over the place. I require that as a psychologist on these boards, you are there to represent me. I'm asking you to do that. Please don't discriminate against me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Breeling.
And I do not see any other requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
This concludes the open session of the Licensure Committee meeting of the Board of Psychology. And the committee will now meet in closed session to discuss qualifications for licensure. As a reminder, at the conclusion of our closed session, we will only reconvene to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for being here with us today.
Oh, really quick, Dr. Harpsheets, this is Antoinette, and I just wanted to mention for the next licensure committee meeting, if we can add an agenda item for foreign master's degrees. We have been getting an uptick in requests for this item. So if we could discuss that as a committee and then bring that discussion to the full board.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Lizelle McCochran. And before we sign off, I just wanted to provide the attendees their CPD credit. So for attending today's licensure committee meeting, you'll receive 1 CPD hour for your participation. You will record it under CPD category number 1, attendance at a Board of Psychology meeting. And then for your records, please note today's date as July 21st, 2023, and the name of today's meeting, which is Licensure Committee Meeting, and 1 CPD hour. If you called in, please email bopce@dca.ca.gov with your license number and phone number. Thank you.
Okay. I see that we have a public comment. So let's take that to go back to our item number 8. And so could you please open the box then again for public comment?
Certainly, thank you. And we do have a hand raised from someone logged into WebEx as Sheila J. Henderson. Sheila, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
You know what? I've answered my question. Thank you very much. So I don't need to comment.
All right, thank you. And this is the moderator, and the majority of our attendees will soon see a screen saying that the board is in closed session. And we will take a moment to get that started and make sure that only the appropriate people are participating in a closed session. And the meeting will adjourn directly after. Thank you.